And they said Mikel Arteta didn't like young players. Hale has done it again, following our 5-1 beating of Bolton in the League Cup with us going through to the next round. We obviously got to see Ethan Nwaneri and Miles Lewis-Skelly start and give great account of themselves, people. Ethan got a brace. Lewis-Skelly had a fantastic game. We also saw young Maldini Kakuri, Kaba, Josh Nichols, and the 16-year-old Jack Porter obviously play. Now, there's no guarantee any of them will become regular fixtures within the Arsenal first team, but it's moments like this across their young journeys as young footballers that make it worth it. How many of us wanted to be footballers? How many of us got scouted? How many of us got signed? How many of us got scholarships and pro deals, and much less got to realize a dream of playing at our favorite football team stadium in an official game? It's a fantastic day for the academy coaches, for the players, and obviously their families. I know in today's day and age, when footballers earn a lot of money, people fail to understand how difficult it is, because for every one of Lewis, Miles, or the rest of them, there's thousands of kids that dreams didn't go anywhere, people. So it's great. In relation to Ethan, we know he's a great player. He's been exposed to little bits and pieces of Premier League minutes. For me, he's got it all. He's got a low center of gravity. He's a fast learner. He's got great balance, a wonder of a left foot, starting to improve defensively and off the ball, as shown for the two mistakes I believe Bolton made, which we capitalized on. First with Declan Rice's goal, and obviously the two from Ethan. Ethan's crashing the box after great play from Lewis-Skelly and Raheem Sterling. The second, we picked the pockets of the Bolton lads and he slotted home. Not the most glamorous of finishes, but they all count, and he's realised an even bigger dream. How many of us have scored for our favourite clubs? As I said, the balance, the calmness, the movement, the increased confidence. He looks like he doesn't look out of place. Now, granted, people will say it's Bolton, yada, 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 which is true. But respectfully to Bolton as well on that matter. But at the same time, for these young players, that might as well be a Champions League football game. How many of them have started against grown men, seasoned professionals, much less a League One side? So it's a good experience and good exposure. Personally, I believe where Ethan is concerned, there's more to come from him. You can see he's a shy lad. I don't think his personality has really shined through on the football pitch for Arsenal's first team. And I think that's going to come, people. Balance, low centre of gravity, footballing IQ, fantastic link-up player, box crasher, proactive. He seems at home in the 8 or the 10, and he's very versatile. Could play out wide as well in the short term, people. Got nothing to worry about. You'd imagine he's targeting more Premier League minutes, and depending on his recovery, that, you know, could play some capacity against Leicester City, maybe even potentially start, people. Speaking of balance and composure, Miles Lewis-Skelly, fantastic player. When you consider the futures of Zinchenko, Tomiyasu, Jorginho, and Partey, obviously all significantly more experienced than Miles. But considering he can play in midfield and at left back, if him and Ethan keep doing what they're doing, there's some places up for grabs beyond what you're seeing already long term in the Arsenal's first team setup. What I like about Lewis-Skelly is, again, clearly he's got a great family background. Clearly he's a great person. You know, he's someone that clearly lifts up his teammates. He's someone that's not afraid to say what he thinks. You can see him issuing instructions to experienced and fellow young professionals. Obviously, before he even kicked a ball, you know, he got a yellow card in the Premier League, people, and he got into it with the thick of it with Haaland. If you've got a generational striker like Haaland and he hates you, which he probably does, you're doing something right. For me, it's his composure, his calmness, his understanding of what Mikel Arteta demands of him and his role in that inverted role. And he's, you know, he can play inverted left back, you can play on the right hand side, he can play as an 8 and a 6. I do think he's quite solid with his passing and risk averse, but kind of his pass which led to the goal that Bolton scored, that's something. It's not his fault because the whole team did poorly, but that's something I think he needs to clean up on. I'm not expecting any of these players to be the finished article. I love Lewis-Skelly. I think he's got a great future in the game, and for me, relishes responsibility. He's somewhat an Arsenal footballer. In fact, he's very much an Arsenal footballer. He's somewhat a seasoned veteran, and I know it's only Bolton and it was only little minutes against City, but a bit like Ethan against Bolton as well, they don't look out of place. Obviously, if you look at their faces, you can see they're young, but if you didn't, you wouldn't know that these are 17, 18-year-olds being exposed to senior football, which is very difficult. It's been quite the week for Lewis-Skelly. He's made his Premier League debut late on against City, and then he got his start. Unfortunately, came off with an injury. We hope he's all right there, because him and Ethan are kind of in the first team, and you'd imagine he wants to be, fit, so he's able to seize any opportunity he's afforded, people. So yeah, man, Hale keeps producing, in my opinion, and the way he moves into midfield as well. Shout out to young Jack Porter. Big up the more experienced lads for protecting him. I think he's very unlucky not to concede. To concede, because it's not his fault. I would have loved for him to get a clean sheet, and a bit like Ethan when he made his debut against Brentford initially in the Premier League, Porter has made history by becoming Arsenal's youngest ever goalkeeper, people. You'd imagine he'd continue to be involved in the first team for as long as Tommy Setford is still injured. There is rumours around David Raya. He must have something about him to get the chance, people. For me, the next step is to establish himself at under 21s level as the first choice, because he's got Tommy Setford, Nordgaard, Royas, plenty of keepers to compete with, people. And also take advantage of being exposed to the first team and training with David Raya, a seasoned veteran like Neto, an innovative goalkeeping coach like Inaki Kanya. And we need to take our time. He's 16 years of age, which is young for a footballer, much less a goalie, people. So let's just take our time. He's doing the right thing. Just keep progressing. You have to big up Josh Nichols. I think, I don't think he's quite at the level right now for immediate first team football. And you'd imagine maybe a loan could be facilitated. But I think he did well. I think he did very well, man. They tried to target him with direct balls over his head. He did quite well in that regards, people. And he had some good passes. Some of his passes invited pressure, but I think he did his thing. It was obviously great to see Kakuri, Cabo also make their debuts. Would have loved to have seen Heaven, forgive me for mispronunciation, who has not signed a pro deal yet. And considering he's been around in pre-season, that might be one to watch. So hopefully the young players keep getting exposed to minutes. And before too long, we'll see Max Dolman, I believe, play in the League Cup, which again, he's 14, playing for under 18 side. So let's take our time. But Hale is beaten. The job of the academy, specifically Murtasak, who oversees it, is to produce players that go onto the first team or players that could be sold on. And where you look at Eddie and Ketia, various different degrees, but you look at Eddie and Ketia, Bakayo Saka, Joe Willock, Reece Nelson, Smith Rowe, Iwobi, Akpom. There's plenty of former Arsenal Academy players having great careers elsewhere and cutting out careers for themselves. So long may that continue. That's all I wanted to say. Big up our Hale youngsters. I believe the future is bright. I do think generally there'll be less chances the better we get as a footballing club, really. I don't think there'll be too many of the League Cup sort of 11s we play. Had Arteta not been forced to kind of play a youthful team, I'm not saying he wouldn't, but I think more minutes would have been afforded to the legs of players that are struggling with fitness, like if Tomiyasu was fit, Zinchenko was fit, etc., etc. But the future's bright. Big up to these footballers, these young guys. I hope they've made themselves and their families proud, and I hope that's given them, the impetus to keep kicking on. Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. On that note, peace.